I never thought the same house I grew up in, the one where I used to paint birthday cards in the hallway and dance with my daughter in the living room, would become the scene of something so vile, so gut-wrenching, that it would change the way I looked at my entire family. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in the comments where you're watching this video from. It was a rainy Sunday afternoon. My daughter, Isla, who had just turned 6, was giggling at something in the kitchen. We had come to my parents' house for what they called a family gathering, code for, let's pretend we're close while my sister gets worshipped and I get ordered around. I had always tried to keep the peace. My daughter loved her grandparents. She didn't know the venom behind their smiles. My sister, Alina, had always been the golden one, blonde, loud, charming in public, and cruel when it counted. She'd humiliate me in front of guests, call me maid material, because I worked full-time and didn't have a nanny. My parents would laugh. My mom once told me, "You have no style, no spark. Be glad your daughter's cute." I swallowed it. For years, I swallowed it all, until that day. Isla was on the top floor, playing with a toy she had just unwrapped, one Alina had tossed at her ear earlier, saying, "Don't get used to gifts, sweetie, your mom's still paying off last month's rent." I was in the kitchen, making her a sandwich, when I heard it, a thud, a terrifying, bone-rattling thud, then a scream, a child's scream that still echoes in my chest at night. I ran. My heart stopped as I saw Isla crumpled at the bottom of the stairs, her small hand scraped, her forehead bleeding, her tiny body shaking from shock. Alina was already at the top of the stairs, leaning on the railing with a smirk I'll never forget. "Relax," she said, rolling her eyes. She was being loud. I nudged her. "It was a joke. She's fine." A joke. My child was trembling on the floor, and my sister, my own sister, stood there like it was comedy hour. I scooped Isla up and screamed for my mom to call an ambulance. She didn't move. She was too busy checking the carpet. "Must have slipped," my mom muttered. "These stairs are old. You should really teach your daughter to be more careful." I stared at her blank face, and then at my dad, who muttered, "Kids fall. You're overreacting again, you always do." That was the moment something snapped in me. Something cold and hard took root where forgiveness used to live. I sat in that hospital room holding Isla's hand as the doctor stitched her forehead. Her tears soaked my sleeve, and I made a promise to myself, no more letting things slide, no more protecting their image, no more showing up just to be humiliated. They said Isla's injuries were minor, but that wasn't the point. That night, as I watched my daughter sleep in the hospital bed, a thought bloomed in my mind, quiet and sharp: they don't deserve to live in that house. They don't deserve to call themselves family, and they have no idea who they've just pushed too far. I smiled, not because I was okay, but because I knew exactly how I'd make them pay. After that night in the hospital, everything changed, but not on the outside. I went silent. I smiled at their messages. I thanked them for their concern. I even showed up once or twice to keep the peace, but inside, I was building a storm they wouldn't see coming until it crashed down on their front porch. They thought I'd go back to being the quiet sister, the pushover, the invisible one. They didn't know I'd been saving for over 6 years, quietly working 2 jobs, investing in small real estate properties with the help of an old college friend. They didn't know that the very house they sat in, mocking my daughter's weak bones, was about to change hands, and not in their favor. I contacted the property owner, an elderly woman named Mara. I remembered she'd once complained during dinner about how exhausted she was from dealing with those tenants. She had no clue they were my parents. I invited her for coffee under a fake name, pitched a generous offer, and told her I'd pay above market value if we closed in 30 days. She agreed. I bought the house in silence. While they laughed about Isla's fall, I finalized paperwork. While my sister posted gym selfies captioned, "No kids, no problems," I signed the deed. They had no idea I now owned the 4 walls they'd weaponized against me, and I didn't intend to keep that a secret for long. The final push came at my niece's birthday party. Isla and I arrived with a small gift, only for my sister to wave her hand and say, "Oh, I forgot you were coming." She gestured at 2 dining chairs and said, "There's no more room at the table. You can sit over there on the floor like last time." I stared at her, then I looked around the room. Everyone laughed. Even my mom muttered, "Well, Isla should learn some humility." I nodded slowly, took Isla by the hand, and walked out. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just picked up my phone and made a call. "Serve the papers," I said. 3 days later, the eviction notices landed in their mailbox like quiet grenades. My parents, my sister, my smug brother-in-law, They all received a letter stating that the new owner of the property had decided not to renew their month-to-month lease. They had 30 days to vacate the premises. Panic erupted. My mom called first. "What is this nonsense? Some scam? Who bought the house?" I said nothing. Then came my sister. "You know Dad's blood pressure is spiking because of this. You think this is funny?" "I do," I replied. "Hilarious. In fact, maybe you should check the stairs before you fall." Then my father called. "Tell me this isn't you. I told you, one day you'd regret laughing when Isla cried. This is that day." They didn't believe it until they saw me pull into the driveway in a power suit, stepping out of the car and walking past them like they were strangers. My mom rushed toward me. "Please," she begged, "this is your childhood home." "No," I said, "this was your throne. Now it's your eviction." My dad muttered, "You've turned into someone bitter." "No," I whispered, "I've turned into someone strong." My sister came last. She cornered me inside the foyer, fists clenched. "You're ruining everything because of some bratty kid who can't handle a joke." I stared at her. "You kicked my child down a flight of stairs, then blamed the carpet." She laughed. "What are you going to do? Toss us into the street?" I leaned in close. "Number one, I'm going to watch you pack box by box, and when you ask for help, I'll remind you, just like you reminded Isla, that we're not family." I turned and walked out, leaving her stunned, humiliated, and finally speechless. 30 days passed like slow thunder. Each day I watched from my car as they hauled box after box into rental vans. My parents looked smaller somehow. My father, less authoritative. My mother, quieter than I'd ever known her. Even my sister, the eternal drama queen, wasn't filming stories anymore. Her followers were suddenly silent. I could have gloated. I could have paraded Isla through the yard in a tiara and clapped as they carried out their last lamp, but I didn't. Instead, I stood still, watching, remembering. I remembered my mother standing over my daughter in the hospital, saying, "It's just a bruise." I remembered my sister snorting and saying, "Oh, please, she needs to toughen up." I remembered my father rolling his eyes at my tears. And most of all, I remembered Isla asking me in the quietest voice, "Why does Grandma hate me?" They packed quickly after that. I heard my father grumble about ungrateful daughters and disrespectful kids. My mother tried to leave behind things, old furniture, wall art, as if clinging to the walls would make her part of them again, but the locks were changed and the power had shifted. 2 days before the final eviction deadline, I walked through the now empty living room. It echoed with memories, some joyful, but most heavy. The air still smelled like their perfume. Isla stood beside me, older somehow in just a few months. "Is this ours now?" she asked. I looked down and smiled. "No, sweetheart, this is our closure." Because I had no intention of staying there. I didn't want to inherit a house haunted by the pain they left in every corner. Instead, I turned it into something better. I partnered with a nonprofit to convert the house into a healing center for single mothers and children who had experienced abuse, emotional, verbal, or physical. We renovated the upstairs into therapy rooms and quiet play spaces. The basement became a crisis shelter. I named the project Layla's Light, and then the ripple started. Local news picked up the story. Daughter evicts toxic family, turns childhood home into safe haven for mothers and children. The video went viral. Comments poured in from other daughters, sisters, mothers who had been told they were too much, or not enough. Layla's name became a symbol of resilience, of transformation. But it wasn't until the grand opening that I saw the final chapter unfold. My parents came. They stood across the street in faded clothes, watching a line of women and children enter a home they once ruled. My mother's mascara was smudged. My father leaned on a cane he hadn't needed 6 months ago. My sister wasn't with them. I found out later she'd tried suing me, claimed emotional distress, saying the eviction ruined her reputation. The court laughed her out. Turns out people don't feel sorry for women who push children downstairs and call it comedy. I walked out to the edge of the property. My mother tried to smile. My father tried to glare. "Is this really necessary?" she asked. I looked at them both in the eye. "You left my daughter crying on cold tile with a fractured arm. You mocked her pain. You defended her abuser. And now you want kindness?" My father spat. "We raised you. You raised me to survive you," I said quietly. Then I turned, took Isla's hand, and walked back into the building where healing was finally louder than cruelty. Months passed. I never heard from them again, but once, as I sat in the quiet garden behind Layla's Light, a new resident approached me. She said, "I saw the video. I was afraid to leave my husband, until I watched your story. Your daughter saved us." I looked over at Isla, now stronger, laughing with other kids, her smile finally unbothered. And I realized something. I didn't just evict my family from a house, I evicted their power over me, over her, over our future. And in its place, I built something they never could, a home without fear, a life without permission, a legacy worth inheriting. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in the comments where you're watching this from.